Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angelica Delgado, and I am going to be presenting the mail merge using Microsoft Word and Excel presentation. I am from the Universidad Laica Eloy Alfaro de Manaví. This is Informatica 1 by Ingeniero Lisandro Molina, and I'm in cuarto semestre paralelo B. Okay, so let's get started. As you can see, mail merging is basically a link that happens between Microsoft Word and Excel. And this is what allows for you to formulate a bunch of documents using a recipient database from Excel that you compile. Okay, so this is especially essential for businesses that want to send out multiple lists of letters to prospective clients or to prospective partners, and they need to use just one generic letter, but they need to change the names and the personalized components to it. Now, the benefits of a mail merge is that, as I mentioned before, you can use the same template of a letter as you might see here, but you would change the data. So, for example, the title of the person, it could be a director, it could be manager, it could be doctor. Then the name, the first name, the last name of the person, the corporation's name, the address, the city, state, zip codes. If you would need to, when you're doing the salutation, include the actual name of the person, you can input it there. Okay. Now this, since it works with Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, this is typically better for users who have Microsoft Office. For people who have a Mac, this might present a little problem because you might need to just buy the version of Microsoft Office, since Mac users usually use the Apple version, which is pages and numbers. But either way, you can get it off the Microsoft website. Okay, so today we're just going to be talking about creating the letters, but you can also use this program to edit some email messages, make some envelopes to go with those letters, make labels, and any sort of directories where you would need to change a lot of the names in each page. Okay. Now, another benefit is that because the letter is typically a little bit generic, you can always make it a little bit more personalized by changing it so that it fits the person's characteristics. So the name, corporation, and so forth. Okay. And this is what we mean by adding it quickly and efficiently. This means that you wouldn't need to type each single letter by hand, which could be very tedious for some and very time consuming. Okay. Now, this is going to be just the first step. Usually you could do it depending on the type of Microsoft that you have. You can either do the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet with the recipients list first, or you could do it after you've actually set it up in Microsoft. But basically, if you want to do the Microsoft Excel first, you need to open a blank Excel sheet. So I have one here already made, but basically you would go to File, New Workbook, and just create a new one, and then just type in the headers, as you see here. So the first one would be title. Then you would do first name, last name, the address, and since we just need to write the number of the house and the actual street name, this would be line 1. And this would be the city, the state, the zip code, and finally the telephone number. Depending on what your goal is, here we would just need to make a general letter. So this is usually at the top, just to show who is this going to, who's the recipient. But for some other reason, you can include the email in the next column, and any, say if you were trying to do an invoice, you would probably include the income, how many people were living in that house, that sort of thing. Okay, so for time's sake, I've compiled a list of 5 recipients. So if we were to be sending a letter out, I would just compile this and start with the title. So it's a Miss. The first name would be Susie, last name McGillen, address 23 Cherry Lane, city, state, and zip code Soho, New York, 114, and the telephone number you would list it there, and so forth on the other 3. Okay, which is basically what we would just need to include for here. Okay, so you would create the header cells first, then you would do the title, the first name, the last name, address, and any telephone number, and then after inputting every information in the cells, you would just save the document. Okay, so here I have it as workbook 3, but you could change the name to anything you would want. Okay, so there we go. Okay, now the next step is moving on to the Microsoft Word component. Okay, so as a Mac user, I needed to buy the Word, but for a Windows user, you would typically have that as your typical program of choice. So in Microsoft Word 2010, and you would, or the Word 2011 on a Mac, you start out the same way. Okay, so these are the steps. You open a blank Microsoft Word document, and I'm just going to walk you through that right here. Okay, so a new blank document right there, and then depending again on the purpose of your letter, you would format it accordingly. Okay, but here, this is what I've done. So let's suppose that we want to send a Happy Holidays letter from a corporation's human relations to their employees. Okay, so you would do some sort of insignia on the top, include the date, the salutation, so dear, it could be hi, hello, depending on how informal you want the letter to be. And then you include the body of the message here, and close it off with closing, so sincerely, and then you would list whoever is sending the letter. Now, to work with mail merge, you would first need to go to Tools, okay, up top, and you're going to scroll down until you see the Mail Merge Manager right here, and click on it. Now this is what you're going to see when you open it up. So you have 6 steps here, and they're pretty straightforward. So you would start with the first one. Let's just loose that up a little bit. Okay, so the first one is select document type, and you have 4 options here. You can form a letter, a label, an envelope, or a catalog. In this case, we're going to choose the form letters option. Okay, this takes you to the second step, which is the select recipients list, and you press the get list button. Now we have some other options here. We have the new data source, which basically means that if I had done this in the reverse and I had started the Microsoft Word first, and I hadn't done the recipient list in Excel, I could do this. So I would do the new data source here. But since we've already done this, I can choose open data source. These other options, these are from address books. So basically, if you wanted to go to your address books down here, you can go and they would take your contacts from there. Okay, and then the FileMaker Pro is a bit more complex, and that would be for a different video than now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to choose Open Data Source. After clicking Open Data Source, it's going to prompt you to choose a file. So as we said before, we labeled this as Workbook 3 Final, and there we go. And you can actually see that there's a little preview of that. You click open, and you typically will receive this message, but you just click OK. Okay, and so then this is going to load, and it'll take you to the next step, which is the Open Workbook dialog box. Okay, so make sure that you have sheet 1 or entire workbook here. And the cell range must always be the entire worksheet here. Okay, and then you're going to press OK. And this is going to take you to the next one. Okay, so see how it says contacts? These labels are the same header labels cells that we have in the Excel document, as you can see. So it has the title, the first name, the last name, the address, the city, state, zip code, and the telephone number. And we can verify that here, right there. Okay, so as you may know, when you're going to do a letter, you will start with the recipient's information first. So you would, as it says here, just drag the placeholders into a document. So you drag it here, and you leave it there. And you keep going. So space here, drag the first name, space, drag the last name, enter, the address line, enter, city, state, and zip code, and we have one more, which is the telephone number. So enter, and telephone number. There we go. Okay, so this is automatically going to tell Microsoft Word that you have some information that you would like to input from the Excel document that we made before, and it will recognize it. So anything else here? So here we have the salutation, and we would just need to input the title of the person. Enter. Space. First name, space, and the last name. Okay, and just check if you need any other, and we don't. Okay, and so this takes us to the next option. This is the filter recipient. So this is typically when you need to filter more than the normal amount of recipients. So here we only have 5, so it's a very simple list. But for major corporations, they might have hundreds, thousands of names and of information of their clients. So that will be very helpful. And this is just going to filter them out. Okay, so it'll filter it by the field. So if you don't want to be filtered, you can do just the title, filter by first name, last name, address, the city, state, zip code, or telephone number. And you can also add, if you wanted to say, for example, title, you'll have the equal to comparing it, and then just compare it to whatever you specify in that field. And you can also include another field filtering mechanism there. So if I wanted to do or by telephone number, because that might be useful, then I would probably choose that one. But if not, I can also sort the records. So sort by, say, if I wanted to do first name, because I knew that there was a lot of people named with the first name starting with an A, then I would typically want to do that. Or I can do it ascending or descending. Okay? Now if I don't want to, which in this case I don't, I would just return this to none and click OK. Okay? And now this takes us to the preview results. Now the preview is going to show you, by clicking the ABC button right there, the View Merge Data, it'll show you how in a few seconds it changed all of that information that we had from our Excel document directly to our Microsoft document without us actually having to type it in. And again, this is very useful, especially if you have more than 10 names. Okay. And so after previewing the results, you can change it to, say if I wanted to see the new record, the next record, I can change and I can see that it's the second name in the list, Miss Nora Montgomery. The address will change as well, and the phone number will change as well. And here, just any little correction there, I can change as well. Okay. And then once I'm done with this, the last step is just to go to the complete merge option. And this is going to give you two options. You can either merge the printer, which means that once you've compiled your list, you can send it directly to the printer and the printer will print it off for you. Or you can preview it again by merging it to a new document. So if, for example, I wanted to see what it looked like, I would do that. And as you can see, it has all of the information that I needed in that list. Okay? Now, the same would have to go with, if for example you wanted to create labels, the same would apply. You would pick the label, products, and the product number, and go from there. So if I wanted to do a new label, I could say holidays. Adjust any margins, the label height, the side margin, the vertical pitch, the horizontal pitch, the number down, and the page size. But it's the same format, so you would get the list, open data source. Once you've picked the data source, the same options will come here for the fields. You could filter any recipients, preview the results before you either send it to the printer or send it to a new document. And from here on out, you can attach this to a document, to an email, or you can send it straight to the printer. Okay. So here, just to clarify any differences, for the Microsoft Word 2010, you would open the blank Microsoft Word document, but instead of going to Tools as we did in the Word 2011 on the Mac, you would go to up top in the Mailings tab right here. You would click on the Start Mail Merge and scroll down to the Step-by-Step Mail Merge wizard, which is similar to what we just discussed here. And of course, when working through the Microsoft Word 2011 on the Mac, you would open the blank Microsoft Word document, type any formatted message or letter, go to the Tools tab up top, scroll down the list, go to the Mail Merge Manager, and finally follow each of the options, 6 options given to you. Now, some limitations about Mail Merge that you should know is that it's very likely that they can use this method to send chain letters to you. So you might be familiar with the letters that they send saying you're a winner, you won $1 million, and this is most likely the method that they used to do that. Also, since the letter must, in most cases, needs to be sent to more than one person, it can have the limitation of sounding a little too similar, maybe a little dry. But that's why it's recommended that you change as much of the components so that the reader and the audience can feel that it was personalized specifically for them. And then finally, the last limitation is that for new users, it might be a little tricky to use when they're starting out. But of course, with a little practice, that can be rectified. Okay, so as a final summary, this allows the Microsoft Office users to personalize the letters. It is easy, quick to change the recipient components, and as we did easily enough, once I had the letter, I can save it and I can change it for a future date and use it for other purposes. Also, as I mentioned in the limitations, you should be cognizant that there might be a little learning curve, especially if you're not using the Microsoft Office system on a Windows computer. But of course, that can be solved with a little practice as well. And also remember any skimming techniques and maybe a bad impression letter that can happen when you use this system. Okay. And then finally, as the conclusion, I conclude that it's very useful for any large corporation to use this mail merge application, just because as a user, I know that it would take way too much time for me to type, say, 20 letters and change each person's data. This also is a quick method to check any inconsistencies by simply just going to Excel and lining them up together. And then finally, as a few recommendations, it's try not to overexert yourself and think that you might not get it. It's a little tricky, but of course, once you learn the basics, you'll be fine. So I hope that this video was very helpful, and of course I would appreciate any feedback that you can give me. I will be linking a short poll at the end with any questions, and I hope that this will help you for your future assignments or any future mail correspondence that you need to send out. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.